We begin with the Performing Artist of the Year, Mel Rogers. Mel is a freelance clarinist, saxophone, flute musician who has worked at the Sanger Theater Broadway Orchestra since 1980. As pit musician and orchestra contractor, he has performed with Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady. Listen to this. Richard Burton in Camelot. Also assembled orchestras for the likes of Ray Charles, Tony Bennett, and Rod Stewart. So, covering some genres there. Rogers has worked with the Jefferson Performing Arts Society, Tulane Summer Lyric, NOCA, La Petite Theater, Beau Rivage, New Orleans Opera, the New Orleans Ballet, and the LPO, and presently teaches in the Talented Music Program at Covington High School. Let's meet Mr. Mel Rogers in this video.
My favorite instrument to play is still the clarinet, the one that I started on. Because I can play pretty much anything. I can play a ballet, I can play an opera, I can play a Broadway show, I can play Dixieland jazz, I can play German music, I can play whatever style I want. And it's also the most challenging of the three. The great clarinetist, Pete Fountain, was a major influence on my development in my early years. I listened to many of his records, heard him live several times, and I tried to copy his style as best that I could. Never quite achieved it, but I tried. I began actually playing professionally at the age of 14 in the Irish Channel neighborhood in which I grew up. And it was a little throw-together band. They passed the hat after the gig, and we each got paid something like $4 a piece. And that was my first introductions to being paid as a musician. By the time I finished high school, I had picked up, along with the clarinet, the flute and the saxophone. And again, that was due to my teachers who forced these instruments on me, knowing that it was best for me to learn them. And as it turns out, if you're going to play a Broadway show, you have to play all those three instruments extremely well. Because a typical show like, say, Chicago, for example, will require you to play 3 or 4 different instruments within the same show. And so when we arrive at the theater, we're loaded down with 4 or 5 or 6, sometimes 6 instruments to play for a typical Broadway show.
It really is a great honor to be recognized for this award. I'd also like to mention my public school music teachers in New Orleans. Howard Voorhees, George Bischoff, and Peter Dumborian at Forte High School, who was one of the co-founders of the New Orleans Summer Pops. And for the past 22 years, I've had the privilege of passing along the knowledge and experience I've gained to scores of music students at Covington High School in the Talented Music Program. Oh yeah, and I owe it all to my wife, Kitty Cleveland.